One of Hollywood's nicest gentlemen and one of Hollywood's most familiar faces, Roddy McDowall.
Hollywood trusted Roddy McDowall because he never caused trouble. He simply smiled, acted, and filmed everything. But beneath that polite exterior was a hidden archive filled with private sets, closed-door parties, and off-screen moments no one consented to. When the FBI raided his house and seized more than 1,000 tapes, Hollywood froze.
This Hollywood actor was hiding one of the biggest secrets in Tinseltown. And Roddy McDowall was literally busted by the FBI for an illegal pirating ring that might ruin his career.
Because inside those reels were truths the stars never wanted exposed. $42 and a desperate mother. Roddy McDowall loved cinema obsessively. He did not just watch films. He collected them, archived them, and filmed everything around him. For years, it seemed like an innocent hobby. But on December 18, 1974, FBI agents raided his home and seized over 1,000 reels of film and videotapes. The obsession that would one day make him a federal suspect began in 1940, during the Second World War. German bombs were falling on London. Roddy McDowall was 12 years old, and his mother was making an impossible decision. The Luftwaffe had been pounding British cities for weeks. The government launched Operation Pied Piper, one of the largest evacuations in modern history. Over 1.5 million people were moved out of major cities, mostly children sent to the countryside or overseas to escape the destruction. The McDowall family chose America. Roddy's father, Thomas, enlisted in the military and stayed behind. That left Winifred McDowall alone with 2 children and a desperate hope that Hollywood might notice her son. She had always dreamed of being an actress herself. It never happened, so she poured every ounce of that ambition into Roddy. By the time they boarded the ship to New York, he had already appeared in 16 British films. He had won poetry contests at 4 years old. He had taken elocution lessons at 5. His sister, Virginia, also acted, and together they had won nearly every drama award at their school over 4 years. But none of that mattered when they arrived. Wartime currency restrictions meant they could only bring a tiny amount of money out of Britain. The McDowall family stepped onto American soil with exactly $42 in their pockets. No savings, no safety net, no connections. Winifred dragged Roddy to every talent agency in New York. Day after day, rejection after rejection. Fox Studios was looking for a child actor with a perfect British accent, someone who felt authentic. When Roddy's screen test landed on director William Wyler's desk, he watched it once and knew this was the kid. Roddy's real-life story of escaping war, combined with his polished accent and natural ability, made him stand out from every other child actor in the city. His first American film was Manhunt in 1941. He played a young boy helping a man escape Nazi-occupied Europe. The role felt uncomfortably close to his own life. Just months earlier, he had been that boy, fleeing bombs and uncertainty. The performance felt real because it was real. But the role that changed everything came later that year. Fox cast him in How Green Was My Valley, a sweeping drama about a Welsh mining family. The studio spent $110,000 building an 80-acre replica of a Welsh mining village. Construction took 6 months. They shipped real coal blocks from Wales to make the set authentic. The film went up against Citizen Kane at the 1942 Oscars. How Green Was My Valley won Best Picture. Roddy was 13 years old, and he had just helped beat Orson Welles. Critics compared him to Shirley Temple, the biggest child star of the era. Fox signed him to a 7-year contract. The kid who arrived broke was suddenly one of Hollywood's most valuable young actors. His mother's desperate gamble had paid off. The boy who became the breadwinner. During World War II, audiences saw Roddy on screen and felt something familiar. He played kids going through hard times, finding strength when everything was falling apart. People wrote letters telling him how much his films meant to them. For soldiers overseas and families at home, his performances offered comfort during the darkest years of the war. In 1943, Fox put him in My Friend Flicka, a film about a boy bonding with a wild horse. Roddy learned horseback riding from scratch. He worked with real animals throughout the production. During filming, a horse was accidentally killed. The tragedy shook the cast, but the film went on to earn $2.4 million in rentals. That was massive money for the time. Fox rushed a sequel into production by 1945. The following year, The Keys of the Kingdom cast him as the young version of Gregory Peck's priest character. He mastered a Scottish accent and carried scenes dealing with death, loss, and faith. He was 16 years old, playing material most adult actors would find challenging. He pulled it off. Then came Molly and Me in 1945. He played a moody teenager convinced his father hated him because he resembled his dead mother. One scene required him to break down crying. The next required physical comedy and funny impressions. Audiences loved seeing range from someone so young. But success came with a price nobody talked about publicly. By 16, Roddy was the primary earner for his entire family. His weekly salary hit $2,500. Adjusted for inflation, that would be hundreds of thousands of dollars today. He worked 6 days a week, sometimes more. No time for school friends, no normal teenage experiences, no childhood left to speak of. Many people wrongly believed he won a Juvenile Academy Award in 1944. That honor actually went to Margaret O'Brien, but the confusion said something about how famous he had become. His face was everywhere. The Golden Boy. Child stars have a brutal track record. Most flame out the moment they grow too old for the roles that made them famous. Roddy was getting older. His voice was changing. His face was maturing. The clock was ticking, and everyone in Hollywood knew it. He had to choose: stay a child star and fade, or reinvent himself and prove he was more than just a cute face. There was a play in pre-production based on a real murder. In 1924, two wealthy Chicago teenagers named Nathan Leopold and Richard Loeb kidnapped and killed 14-year-old Bobby Franks to prove they could commit the perfect crime. They believed they were geniuses, above the law, beyond morality. They failed. Police caught them within weeks. The trial became a national sensation. 30 years later, Broadway adapted the case into Compulsion. Roddy McDowall, the former child star known for playing Sweet Kids, auditioned for one of the killers. He got the part. From October 1957 to February 1958, Roddy played Arthur Strauss, based on Nathan Leopold. The role required him to be cold, calculating, and deeply unsettling. No warmth, no redemption. Just a brilliant young man who believed he was above everyone else and proved it by helping take a child's life. Nathan Leopold was still alive. Released from prison in 1958 after 33 years, he sued to stop the film version. He lost. The movie went forward in 1959, but without Roddy. The studio replaced him with Bradford Dillman, while Dean Stockwell kept his role. Roddy never got a clear explanation. It stung. But the stage performance had done its job. He had proven he could play dark. The following year, Midnight Lace cast him as Malcolm Stanley, a creepy young man circling Doris Day in a psychological thriller. Roddy's presence made every scene feel dangerous. Audiences who remembered the sweet Welsh boy now felt uneasy watching him. That was exactly the point. He returned to Broadway in 1960 for Camelot, playing Mordred, the villain who brings down the kingdom. The show ran for 873 performances. Roddy appeared in 284 of them. His performance earned him a Tony nomination. The child star was gone. He had wiped that version of himself deliberately, role by role. The $44 million disaster. The most expensive film of its time should have launched Roddy into stardom. Instead, Cleopatra nearly buried him alive. Elizabeth Taylor almost died on set. During early filming in London, she developed severe pneumonia that required an emergency tracheotomy. The scar on her throat remained visible for years. Production shut down completely while she recovered. That was just one disaster among dozens. Cleopatra became the most chaotic, expensive, and scandal-plagued production in Hollywood history. The budget ballooned to $44 million, over $450 million today. No film had ever cost that much. Fox nearly went bankrupt. Studio executives sold off a massive chunk of their backlot just to stay solvent. That property eventually became Century City. Roddy played Octavian, the calculating young Roman who would become Emperor Augustus. He watched $5 million burn through before production even moved from London to Rome. He saw sets built, torn down, and rebuilt. He saw costumes designed for Taylor that cost $194,000 combined. He watched the affair between Taylor and Richard Burton explode into tabloid headlines that dominated newspapers for months. The Taylor-Burton scandal was unlike anything Hollywood had seen. Both were married when filming started. Their romance became an international obsession. The Vatican condemned them. Newspapers called Taylor a homewrecker. The drama threatened to overshadow the film entirely. Through it all, Roddy stayed professional. He showed up on time. He knew his lines. He did not get involved in the chaos. People who worked on Cleopatra remembered him as one of the few calm presences on a set that felt like a war zone. Against all odds, the film made money. Cleopatra earned $57.7 million at the box office, the highest-grossing movie of 1963. It was not enough to cover the insane budget, but audiences still showed up. 2 years later, Roddy joined another massive production. The greatest story ever told was an epic retelling of the life of Jesus Christ with a $20 million budget. Filming stretched across nearly 3 years. Roddy played Matthew the Apostle, portraying him as thoughtful and searching, wrestling with faith rather than accepting it blindly. The film earned only $15.5 million. Critics found it slow and overstuffed, but Roddy's quiet sincerity stood out. The Forbidden Love. Elizabeth Taylor made the introduction in 1951. She thought her two friends would get along. She had no idea what she was setting in motion. Roddy met Montgomery Clift at a party, and something shifted. Clift was already one of the most celebrated actors in Hollywood. He had just finished A Place in the Sun. Critics called him the next great American leading man. He was also deeply troubled, privately gay, and self-destructive in ways few people understood. Roddy fell hard. Within months, he made a decision that shocked everyone who knew him. He moved to New York, not for a role, not for a project, just to be closer to Montgomery. For the next 2.5 years, Roddy nearly vanished from Hollywood. He turned down scripts. He skipped auditions. His entire world became one person. They kept the relationship hidden. In 1950s, America exposure meant destruction. Studios had morality clauses. Magazines paid informants to catch stars in compromising situations. One photograph, one whisper to the wrong person, and careers disappeared overnight. Roddy understood the risk. He took it anyway. But Montgomery was not built for love. He drank too much. He pushed people away. When he ended things with Roddy, he did it without warning. Roddy did not handle it well. The heartbreak sent him into a spiral. He tried to end his own life. He survived. Years later, people close to him confirmed it happened, though Roddy rarely spoke about it publicly. What happened next is harder to explain. Roddy forgave him, almost immediately. He stayed in Montgomery's life as a friend and protector. In 1956, Montgomery left a dinner party at Elizabeth Taylor's house. He had been drinking. His car slammed into a telephone pole. His jaw shattered. His nose collapsed. His cheekbones cracked. Elizabeth found him choking on his own teeth and pulled them from his throat so he could breathe. Roddy photographed Montgomery's recovery, images of him trying to smile again, practicing expressions in mirrors. He never published them while Montgomery was alive. In 1966, Montgomery was falling apart. He could barely finish his last film, The Defector. Roddy fed him lines off camera, covered for his mistakes. Montgomery said he could not have finished without Roddy's help. A few weeks later, Montgomery died. He was just 45. Hollywood's father confessor. Being gay in 1950s. Hollywood was a death sentence for your career. Roddy McDowall lived under that threat every day. Confidential magazine made millions destroying stars, paying hotel staff and drivers to report anything scandalous. One slip, and you were done. Rock Hudson nearly got exposed. His agent, Henry Wilson, survived by playing chess with people's lives, sacrificing one client to save another. Just existing required constant warfare. Roddy played it differently. He stayed silent in public. No relationships, no mistakes. But privately, he built something Hollywood had never seen. His home became a safe house where celebrities could breathe without looking over their shoulders. He collected everyone's secrets and buried them. People called him the father confessor of Hollywood. In 1965, he bought a Malibu beach house and filmed a party that summer. Paul Newman flipped burgers. Lauren Bacall sunbathed. Rock Hudson, Anthony Perkins, Natalie Wood, and Jane Fonda showed up and acted like actual human beings. The 16mm reels captured Hollywood without its armor on. Roddy locked the footage away. Releasing it would have torched careers. Those reels stayed hidden because he understood what mattered more than fame: trust. He also shot risky photos with Tab Hunter, another closeted actor. The two posed in short shorts, cooking hot dogs, acting like a couple. It was reckless. If studios saw those images, both careers would have ended instantly. But Roddy did it anyway because some things were worth the risk. When Confidential attacked Maureen O'Hara in 1957 with a fabricated theater story, Roddy didn't run. He'd known her since How Green Was My Valley in 1941. He photographed her during the trial and stayed close while her brother proved she wasn't even in the country during the alleged incident. The case helped destroy Confidential, but Roddy's loyalty mattered more than any legal win. In a town built on selling each other out, he never gave anyone up. The FBI raid. By the early 1970s, Roddy had built something most studios did not have: a private archive of 337 films stored in his North Hollywood garage. Out of those, 160 were rare 16mm prints: Citizen Kane, Lassie Come Home, My Friend Flicka. Films that the studios were literally throwing away because they did not think old movies had value. Roddy bought Errol Flynn's entire personal collection from Flynn's widow. He spent thousands transferring films to Sony U-matic tape, a format that came before VHS and Betamax. He believed tape would last longer than film. He only charged friends what he remembered paying, sometimes $75 for 3 films. His garage became a mini museum of lost cinema. Then came December 18, 1974. FBI agents arrived with trucks. It was the biggest film piracy raid the Bureau had ever conducted. They seized 160 film reels and over 1,000 videotapes. They also took prints of his own movies, Planet of the Apes, Tam Lin, Lassie Come Home. The government was building a case that Roddy was not just collecting, he was copying and distributing films illegally. The situation was dangerous. Roddy made a devastating choice. Instead of fighting, he cooperated. He gave the FBI names. Rock Hudson had given him a print of Giant. He named Arthur P. Jacobs from the Planet of the Apes series, plus Dick Martin and Mel Torme. Other names were blacked out in official documents. A fellow collector later said it broke Roddy's heart to lose his films, but betraying his friends hurt more. Even Robert Osborne, a close friend and respected film journalist, had no idea Roddy had cooperated. If Rock Hudson ever found out, he never mentioned it. By June 1975, the government dropped the case. No charges, no trial, no jail. But the damage was done. Roddy stopped hosting movie nights. Some friends never came back. His name was forever tied to the raid. He tried to move on. He joined the Academy's board and helped create the National Film Preservation Board. In the 1990s, he worked on restoring Cleopatra. What began as a passion for saving cinema became a public lesson. There is a fine line between preservation and theft. Roddy learned it the hardest way possible. The man with the camera. Roddy had been taking photographs since the early 1950s. He worked with Life and Vogue as early as 1953, but nobody realized how serious he was until 1966, when he published Double Exposure. The book was 251 pages and featured portraits of 98 Hollywood celebrities. But the real innovation was the format. Instead of journalists writing about the stars, each celebrity was described by another famous person. Marlon Brando was profiled by James Baldwin. Lauren Bacall was written about by Katharine Hepburn. Nobody had ever done anything like it. The book sold incredibly well and made Roddy one of the most trusted photographers in the industry. He had access that nobody else had. Stars let him photograph them without makeup, without handlers, without the usual Hollywood armor. They trusted him because he never betrayed that trust. In 1989, he published Double Exposure Take 2. This one was darker. The most striking images showed Judy Garland during her worst days. Roddy had been her friend during the filming of the Judy Garland show in 1963. He photographed her when no one else could. Breakdowns, crying, sick and exhausted. The book paired these images with honest accounts of how MGM had destroyed her. The pills they gave her to stay thin. The pills to wake up. The pills to sleep. By the time she was 40, her health was gone. Roddy had seen it all up close. He also documented what happened during A Star is Born in 1954. The studio had a $5 million budget, huge for the time, but after filming, executives cut 27 minutes without the director's consent. That decision ruined Garland's chances at the Oscar and damaged her career. Roddy photographed her pain during that period. In 1993, he released Double Exposure Take 4, focused entirely on his 50-year friendship with Elizabeth Taylor. She opened up about everything. Her addictions, her weight struggles, her marriages, Richard Burton. There were photos of her without makeup, crying after a divorce. One image showed a picture she had taken of Roddy, a symbol of their mutual trust. The long makeup. Every morning at 2 a.m., Roddy McDowall woke up and drove to the studio. Not to act, not yet. Just to sit in a chair for 3.5 hours while technicians glued pieces of rubber to his face. Planet of the Apes required something no film had attempted before. The actors playing apes needed to look believable, not like men in masks. The studio hired John Chambers, a makeup artist who had worked with the CIA creating disguises. His prosthetics were revolutionary. They were also brutal to wear. The first makeup tests took 7 hours to apply and another 3 to remove. Roddy sat through the entire process without complaint. When production began in 1967, the team had cut application time down to 3.5 hours. Still punishing, still exhausting, still 5 days a week for months. The makeup came in pieces, separate ears, a different chin, layers of hair applied strand by strand. Even his lower teeth had to be painted black. The prosthetics covered so much of his face that the studio had to develop new types of foam rubber, just so his skin could breathe underneath. Actors could not eat solid food while wearing the appliances. They sipped liquid meals through straws. Roddy played Cornelius, a chimpanzee archaeologist who questions his society's beliefs about human intelligence. The role required him to convey emotion through inches of rubber. Most actors would have treated it as a paycheck. Roddy treated it as a challenge. He found ways to communicate warmth and curiosity despite the physical limitations. Critics noticed. The film cost $5.8 million and became a massive hit when it was released in 1968. Cornelius became Roddy's most famous role. Decades later, people who had never seen How Green Was My Valley still recognized him as the gentle ape who befriended Charlton Heston. But Roddy did something else during production that nobody asked him to do. While other actors went home after filming, he stayed behind with his 8mm camera. He documented the makeup process. He filmed cast members taking helicopter rides to the beach in full costume. He captured footage of actors sipping drinks through straws while wearing orangutan faces. He recorded the small, strange human moments that happen on any film set but usually disappear the moment production wraps. In 1974, he sat through the full 3.5-hour makeup session just to appear briefly on The Carol Burnett Show and share his behind-the-scenes footage with the audience. No one had paid him to preserve those moments. No one had asked. He simply understood that something worth remembering was happening, and he refused to let it vanish. The director who never directed again. Roddy only directed one film in his entire life. It was called Tam Lin, and it nearly destroyed him. The project began in 1967. Roddy adapted an old Scottish ballad about a young man held captive by the Queen of the Fairies. He cast Ava Gardner as the lead and filled the film with psychedelic imagery that captured the strange energy of the late 1960s. It was personal, ambitious, and completely unlike anything else being made at the time. Then the production company went bankrupt before the film could be released. Tam Lin sat on a shelf for 3 years. When it finally came out in 1970, the new distributors had chopped it up and changed it beyond recognition. They gave it different titles in different markets: The Devil's Widow, Toys and Games. None of them made sense. None of them reflected what Roddy had actually made. The film flopped. Critics ignored it. Audiences never found it. Roddy never directed again. The experience cost him more than just a directing career. While he was busy with Tam Lin, production began on Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Roddy was unavailable. It became the only film in the original Apes franchise that he did not appear in. 30 years later, Martin Scorsese helped restore Tam Lin to something close to Roddy's original vision. Critics who finally saw the proper cut called it a lost gem, a strange and beautiful film that deserved better than it got. But by 1998, it was too late for Roddy to enjoy the vindication. His acting career had its own resurrection. In 1985, he was cast in Fright Night as Peter Vincent, a washed-up television host whose vampire hunter show gets canceled because nobody cares about monsters anymore. The role hit close to home. Roddy had just been fired from a real horror program and was feeling like Hollywood had moved on without him, but Fright Night became a surprise hit. It earned $24.9 million and turned into a cult classic. Young horror fans discovered Roddy for the first time. For a brief moment, it felt like a comeback. He was relevant again, beloved by a new generation who had no memory of the child star from the 1940s. The Locked Vault. When Roddy McDowall died on October 3, 1998, he left behind more than films and photographs. He left behind secrets. For decades, Roddy had kept personal diaries. He wrote about his relationships, his friendships, his observations of Hollywood's most private moments. He saved letters from famous friends. He held on to home videos that captured stars at their most vulnerable. And before he died, he gave all of it to Boston University with one extraordinary condition. No one could open the archive until 2098, 100 years after his death. Legal experts were stunned. The only reason to seal something that long is to protect people who are still alive. Whatever those diaries contain, Roddy believed the world was not ready to see it. He wanted everyone mentioned in those pages to be long gone before the truth came out. People close to Roddy have speculated about what the archive might hold. Evidence of Elizabeth Taylor's troubled marriage to Eddie Fisher, which Roddy witnessed firsthand. Letters about Rock Hudson's AIDS diagnosis and how the industry covered it up for years. Hudson died in 1985, but Roddy had known the truth long before the public did. He never said a word. There are supposedly home movies showing Judy Garland at private parties during her worst periods. Footage of drug breakdowns and emotional collapses that no outsider ever saw. Recordings of intimate moments with Paul Newman, Natalie Wood, and Anthony Perkins. Stars who trusted Roddy because he never betrayed them while they were alive. And then there is the diary entry that people believe exists, but no one has confirmed. A page describing the night Roddy tried to take his own life after Montgomery Clift ended their relationship. If he wrote about it, that account is now locked away for another 7 decades. Roddy spent his entire adult life keeping Hollywood's secrets. He watched careers rise and fall. He saw scandals covered up and lives destroyed by exposure. He photographed moments of joy and despair that the public never knew existed, and through all of it, he stayed silent. The father confessor of Hollywood heard everything and repeated nothing. In death, he made sure it would stay that way. The vault remains sealed. The diaries remain unread. The truth about Golden Age Hollywood sits in a university archive, waiting for a future that none of us will live to see. Roddy McDowall was 70 years old when cancer took him. Elizabeth Taylor flew to Los Angeles and visited him every day until the end. After he died, she held a private memorial at her home. Don't miss the videos on screen now. They're just as interesting. Catch you in the next one.